Hi dear friend, today we'll discuss about the microservices. Before going to this video, please subscribe to this channel and like on this video, so it will encourage to us for making new video on new topics. So before going to waste the time, so let's start with the microservices. So first thing, what are the microservices? So microservices just as like microservice architecture. It is a architecture style that structure a application as a collection of small autonomous services modeled around the business domain. In a microservices architecture, each service is a self-contained and implement in a single business capability. So let's this. So microservices means suppose we have lot of module we can integrate into the single business units, just like as a enterprises services, enterprises applications. We want to integrate a lot of business component independently. So what are the things about the microservices? Microservices is a is a language independent. For example, so many people are working in different technical skill, but we want to make it a application as a enterprises with the help of microservices. So all skill set uh, uh, members can independently develop its domain and integrate with this business unit. So this is the things of microservices. So principle, what are the principle used to design microservices architecture? So that things, so we have microservices design as following: independent on autonomous services. Independent means any developer can independently work on module, and autonomous service means it is autonomous self if anything is going to wrong. So like that, during the deployment or any business case are going to fail, so independently can be handled by the uh, any developer team. Scalability is a this part is maintaining the application frequency of accessibility, means faster, and uh, and we are going through this design microservices architecture. Decentralization means the all modules can independently deploy and in the different servers. So can be improve the scalability of the application. Regi- resilient services means it is uh, it will work on resilient manner all services. Real time loading balancing, and real time can be maintained through the load balancing. So have many tools, and availability, and continuous delivery through the depth of integration means because of microservices or working on independently, so we can maintain through the DevOps means by using some tools. DevOps means we, if suppose we have some lot of tools, so independently by the through the tool we can provide the delivery of all these microservices. Seamless API integration and continuous monitoring. Okay, so I think this is clear about that. API integration and continuous monitoring. How to monitor? We have some tools by using just like give the example as a curator or something. What services are going to down? What is the health and everything can be monitored. All those API. Isolation from the failure. Isolation from the failure. Suppose one service is going to down, it will not impact on the other services. So easily can track out and do work on that. Thereafter, we go through the continuous delivery DevOps integration. Auto provisioning. Auto provisioning is a part of microservices. So, it provisioning will be automatically happen during the uh, running of these applications. So, what are design pattern of microservices? So, we have mentioned in this PDF 10 microservices design patterns are there. One is aggregator, another one is a have API gateway, chain of responsibility, asynchronous messaging, database or shared data. Design pattern can follow event sourcing, branch, and command and query responsibility segregators, circuit breaker decomposition. Okay, so let's discuss on one by one. So what are the aggregator design pattern? So microservices pattern aggregator is a basic web page where invoke various services to get required information or achieve the required functionality. Suppose we have API microservices A and B. So all these two API I want to aggregate on the web pages, so directly can be integrate in the web services, so that the design patterns can be tell as a aggregator design pattern. API gateway design pattern. API gateway design pattern act as a entry point of all services, create, find, gain API different type of client. So gateway API, it will act as a load balancer, means once we have clustered all web services, suppose as per this example, and B services clustered and connect with the load balancer, and load balancer, through the load balancer we can utilize the API gateway design pattern. So API gateway design pattern will provide the single endpoint of API, so client can access by this single endpoint API. Okay, so this can be go through the API gateway design pattern. Another one is a chain of responsibility design pattern. Chain of responsibility design pattern produce a single output, which is a combination of multiple chain output. So if you have three services lined up in chain, so request from client is a first receive service A, then this service communicate with the next service and collect the data. So chain and chain responsibility means suppose we want to collect single output from two services, so intercommunication will happen, means by using some functionality just like a REST template or anything can be used based on we call one API and another API, thereafter can collect the both data into the single output. That called be a chain of responsibility design pattern. So this is way of this example saying service A, service B, service C. So we want to intercommunicate each and other services, service A, service B, service C. So we collect the data from service C into service B, get a one output, and thereafter A will call to this, and A and B aggregated data can be collect into the service A and will get the single output. That is the chain and chain responsibility design pattern. Okay, asynchronous messaging design pattern is from the above pattern a single quite obvious that the client get the block or has to wait for long time in synchronous messaging. But if we don't want to the consumer to wait for long time, so then you can opt for the asynchronous messaging. In this type service design pattern, all services can be communicate each other. So what will here? Asynchronous design pattern here will you see in this example queue. So here can be utilized as a middleware, just as a Kafka, any other tool, RabbitQueue or some. So asynchronous means once you have call that services, you that message you just place on the messaging server, just like as a Kafka, and once you get receive the data from service A, then you communicate to service B, and once one A and B services are communicated, then will call to service A, and basis of this can be go through the asynchronous design pattern. Asynchronous design pattern only used for whenever we are using any middleware component, just like Kafka, RabbitQueue, or any messaging tools. So that way, that design pattern called as asynchronous design pattern. Okay. So another one is a database or shared data design pattern. For this, every application there is a homogeneous amount of data present. So when we break down application from the monolith architecture to microservices, so it is a very important to note that each microservices has sufficient amount of data to process a request. So either system can have a database per each service, it can have shared database design pattern. Okay. So this way can be tell shared data design pattern. Suppose service C and service D are communicating with a single database, and service A is communicate to service C and B database, and A service communicate to B database. So that design pattern are shared database design pattern. Okay. So based on this diagram, you can understand about how will work this database or shared data design pattern. Event sourcing design pattern. Event sourcing design pattern create the event regarding to change in the application state. These events are stored a sequence of event is help to developer track which change was made. So with the help of this, so presentation of layer. Suppose event based means event just like is any service and query for current state, external systems. So event sourcing just like a materialized view, everything can be present into the presentation layer. So event sourcing design pattern, event regarding a change in application state. So these events are stored in sequence of event to help the developer track the change mode when, so we can help of this. So that are the design pattern. Anything else in the our services is going to change, so this can be tracked through the event source design pattern. Okay. Branch pattern, how will work branch pattern? Branch microservices design pattern is a design pattern which you can simultaneously process the request and response two or more independent services. So like chained design pattern, unlike chain design pattern, the request is not passed in the sequence, but request is passed two or more manually exclusive microservices chain. So if you go through this architecture, service A, service B, service C, service D. It will communicate to each other by using a branch design pattern. Okay. So command and query responsibility segregator means it can be say CQRS design pattern. Every microservice design pattern has either database per service model or shared database per service. But in the database per service model, we cannot implement to query as a data source in is only the limited to one single database. Okay, command and query, write command and query read from the database. So this if you go through this diagram of this command and query responsive segregator QR design pattern, it is based on the command and query based design pattern. So through the query and command you can achieve the data through this design pattern. Another one is a circuit breaker design pattern. As a name suggested, circuit breaker design pattern is used to stop the process of request and response if service is not working. For example, let's say a client is sending request to retrieve data from multiple services, but due to the some issue, one service is down. So now there are mainly two problems you will face. Okay. So in that cases, we can use circuit breaker. Means circuit breaker just as like remote service. So remote service, suppose a service A, service B, service C, and service A is down. So it will using the circuit breaker. It will not impact to the client. If one service is going down, so another service parallelly will work and without impacting on the down service. So circuit breaker mostly have some tools. If you go through the Eureka server, you have a load balancer. You can look at which service which service is down. So based on you can check and act on that services for restarting to that. Decomposition design pattern. Microservices are developed with the idea of developer meant to create a small service, each having their own functionality, but break on the application into a small autonomous unit has to be done logically. So to decompose a small or big application into the small services, you can use the decomposition pattern. Okay, so with the help of this design pattern, either you can decompose an application based on the business capability on the base of subdomain. For example, you consider e-commerce application, so you can have a service in a separate service for the order payment, customer, product. You can decompose by the business capability. Okay, so strangler design pattern or bind design pattern. Strangler design pattern or bind design pattern is based on the analogy to the vine, which basically strangle tree that is wrapped around. So when this pattern is applied on the web application, a call goes back to the fourth of each URL call, and service are broken down into the different domain. So these domain will be hosted as a separate service. So this is the strangler design pattern. I hope you understand. I hope you will understand about the microservices, what kind of design pattern, uh, how to make it microservices, and how to break monolith application into the into the microservices. So utilize to this design pattern you can do on that. Thank you very much. So looking to this video.